Hey everybody, welcome back to BigRedEDC and welcome to this edition of JV on EDC. Our good friend Rusty Knife Lover recommended a topic about what to look for on traditional knives. So I thought I would run through just some of the things that I look at when I'm, checking out traditional knives, some of the things that you might want to, check out, be aware of, that type of thing. If you're new to the traditional knife game, it might be a little bit helpful. Those of you that have been around traditional knives, for quite some time will obviously know what I'm talking about. But this is more for maybe, some of the new people getting into knives, getting into the EDC community, and checking out traditional knives. So let's get to the tabletop. I'm not going to make you look at me too much more. Go check out the comments from the last JB on EDC video. You'll understand why I said that. But anyway, let's get to the tabletop and we'll check out some traditional knives. All right, guys, so we've got just a few examples on the table of some traditional pocket knives. We've got a couple of RoseCrafts, we've got a C. Reisner, we've got a case, and we've got some Rough Riders. Now, one of the first things you'll see that I do in my video is when I pick up a knife, a traditional knife, I'll sit here and I'll just kind of, as I'm talking about it, I'm running my fingers across it. So what am I checking there? So I'm checking, are the pins flush? Are they protruding at all? Is the shield protruding? How are the transitions between, in this case, you've got two separate materials, the resin and the burl wood, but typically it's sanded down pretty well. The other transition I usually check is right here between the bolster and whatever material it may be. And I just check it on both sides. And, it's for knives like stag and bone and jigged bone especially, sometimes with the jigging on the bone, it may be, not, you can see that one protrudes a little bit. So on a jigged bone or, something like this, or even stag, now these have been done pretty darn well. It's really hard to get that perfect flush pin. Some of them are done very well. Others, it's just the way the bone is jigged that it doesn't quite get flush. And like I said, that one kind of protrudes a little bit. I'm not... In a knife like this with a smooth cover, I think they shouldn't protrude. Now, you're going to hear me talk about, obviously different price levels. When you're talking about, say, a Rough Rider knife that you pay $12, $15 for, there's going to be some things that I personally am just a little bit more lenient on, if you will, such as, minor protrusions in the pins. Some minor gapping, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. There's just little things that I don't mind on an inexpensive knife. Some people may, that's fine. I don't, it's a $12, $15 knife. I'm not expecting perfection. But now, when you get to something like this is obviously a RoseCraft. This is one of their new Akoi River, one of the new handle materials, the burl and the resin. They've also got the red resin and burl as well. When you start getting, where that really comes into play for me is probably in that 25 and above range. We should start to not see that type of stuff. And, when talking about RoseCraft blades, guys, in that $50 to $80 range, to me, at this exact point in time, RoseCraft has pretty much got that locked down. That's pretty much their price range for their knives, for their traditional knives, in that $50 to $80 range. They're not super budget, but they are done very, very well for the price you pay. So that's just kind of what I'm looking at, as far as that goes. Now, like I said, when the jigged bone, it's a little, or jigged bone, however you want to say it, with the shield, it might protrude just a little bit. That one does kind of right there, but it's, how that you can see how the different levels in the bones. So I'm not too picky on, or I guess I should say I'm more lenient on a cover material like this or the type of, you know, that inexpensive knife. Now, the other thing I was talking about was gapping. Here again, you'll see, if you look there between the spring and those brass liners, there's some minor gapping going on up here. Again, I think this is a $15 knife. I'm not as picky about it. Sure, I'm not expecting perfection when it comes to gapping on a knife. Do I look at it? Absolutely. You know, now if I don't see gapping on a $12 or $15 knife, I'll point that out. It's done very well. If I see a little bit, that's not too bad. You guys know, if you've been with the channel for any length of time, you know what some experiences I've had with gapping with case knives. And when you're talking an $80, $85 knife, yeah, to me, we're unacceptable at that point. You shouldn't have gapping if you're paying that much for a knife. That's just me. Now, here's a case knife, and I can tell you right now that this one was done pretty well. We might have some, I mean, there is some going on this knife. Now, this was a gift. I don't know how much it was, and, you know, I will never be mad at there being gapping on this knife because it was a gift from a great friend. So I'll live with it. I'll love it. And this knife will never, ever, ever leave my collection. But, you know, we're talking about case knives. You know, when you're talking $60, $70, $80, to me, that probably shouldn't be there. You know, it should look like this. It should look like this $60 knife from RoseCraft Blades. That is done so very well. That's the way, if you're at $50 and above, we shouldn't see gapping at all, in my opinion. We definitely shouldn't. So we've talked about gapping. We've talked about raised pins, transition. That's pretty much, for the most part, what I wanted to talk about as far as, you know, the exterior of the knife. Now we're going to start talking about interior. First thing you're going to probably notice when you go to open the blade is the pull. Now, and I hate this because I'm having a hard time finding it, but there is sort of an accepted way to grade the pull of a knife. You grade it from 1 to 10. Okay, 1 basically being the thing won't stay shut, it just falls open, to 10 being you pretty much need external external help, pliers or something, to get it open. And then you kind of, you know, from falling open, you step up to needing a Buick to pull it open. So, you know, it's kind of subjective in my opinion, but, you know, I've got a grading where I think, reading through it when I did, I'll try to find that for you guys and link it below if I can, but pulling it open, the pull. Now, to me, this one is probably a 5 to a 5.5, you know, in between that 5 and 6. It's not a hard pull at all, but it's a solid pull. I'm not worried about it at all. You know, it's going to be good. Now, I don't want them too strong. A 7 is about as high as I like to go, what I consider a 7. After that, you know, it's too much. It's just too much. So this one, like I said, is about a 5 to 5.5, between that 5 and 6. Now, the other thing you'll notice is this one has a half stop. That's just an extra measure. You've got to stop there, and then it pops open. Now, some traditional knives do not have a half stop, like this one. It does not have that half stop. So, that's just one of the things. I kind of like a half stop. Now, I know some folks, you know, out there, you know, they have a little bit of trepidation about a traditional knife. Well, because, you know, they don't want it to come closed on you. Well, I get that. I understand that half stop is a little bit of, I guess, extra protection, you know, from that. And when I do, I watch to see how it kicks into that half stop, how it snaps open and kicks into that half stop, and then, of course, how it snaps shut. That's your walk and talk. The walk and talk is how it acts. And the talk is how it sounds. This is a common way of referring to that, the walk and talk. Now that's going to also give you a pretty good, between the pull and how it snaps into that half stop, that's going to give you a good indication of how well or how good your back spring tension is. And you know, some are a little bit lighter than others. You know, like this, the pull on this one, I'd say that's probably a 5. This is what I would call a 5, and it snaps back pretty well. Again, no half stop, but it snaps open pretty well, and it snaps shut pretty well. And the pull, probably that's a 5 to me. This Sea Reisner cutlery, the Indian head. Oh, now this is probably, that's a good solid. Oh yeah, good solid. Now it's probably a 6. This is, to me, this is a 6. It's a little bit more stout than the RoseCraft Ocoee River is, but it's still not bad. It's got a nice pop to it. Now the other thing I did kind of go over is you'll see your opening method. You've got 2 different opening methods. This is a long pull, of course, and this is a nail nick. Now sometimes you will see, oh, here we go. Yes. You'll see a nail nick that looks like this. You see how this one is smooth. That's just a regular old nail nick. And then you have this one that's got sort of the ribbing, or the proper terminology for it, but this is a match strike nail nick. And supposedly you could strike a match on it. That's how it got its name. So I have tried to strike a wood match on some match strike pulls and haven't had a whole lot of success with it. So now one of the other things you'll notice when you're opening your knife is if that pivot feels gritty. If it feels gritty or if it feels dirty. That's one of the other things that I'm looking for. And this one's very smooth. I don't think any of these are really gritty. Sometimes you'll get them, and, you know, typically they will come on your less expensive knives. I've had a few Rough Riders that were a little bit, you know, they just feel it's got manufacturing dust gunk in there. And I do have a video on how I clean out a pivot. I'll try to get that linked down in the description as well. But basically what I do is I flood the pivot with lubricating oil. Then obviously I have a rag behind, and I'll take some canned air and I'll blow it out. And I'll do that, you know, 3-4 times, as many times as it takes really, but until it really starts to feel, you know, loose, good, and a smooth pull. So the other thing, once you get it open, what are we looking for? Well, we're looking for blade play. That is going to tell you how good your connection between your backstring connection, but I hope you know what I mean. I think you do. Your relationship. There you go. That'll tell you how good your relationship is between your back spring and your blade. And side to side will tell you how good the knife is actually pinned on that pivot. So, you know, those are something I really don't have any issue with. A lot of times with, you know, I mean, here again, you're talking a $15 knife. That's solid. That is a solid. There's no wobble. There's no wiggle. No nothing. So that's one of the other things that I'm checking. Grindy pivot, pull strength, half stop. I've got a list here of the things I wanted to make sure I touched. One of the other big things is obviously blade centering. Now, I am not... What do I want to see them centered? Absolutely. They should be centered. A lot of times, you know, on these, you know, $15, $20 knives, they're not. You know, these are actually pretty darn good for the most part. My big thing is making sure it's not so off-center that it's rubbing on your liners, rubbing on some of your other blades, like with your multi-bladed patterns, you know, like your Congresses and stuff, where you've got two blades in the same, path here. Make sure they're not rubbing, touching, that type of thing. Sometimes you will find them that they do rub. There again, on the inexpensive knives, I don't get too wrapped up about it. That's probably one of the things that I am a little bit more picky on. And you, trust me, if you know, you've been with the channel for a while, you guys know I prefer single-bladed traditional knives. Why? Most of the time, it's because of how the relationship between my hand and the blade that is not deployed. Now, this one's fine. I don't have any issue with it. That blade is fairly low profile. No issue with that second blade whatsoever. But some of the other ones, you know, the blades kind of stick up a little bit. Now, if I was going to turn around and use the pen blade, let's see. Still not too bad. Obviously, I can feel this blade a little bit more because it does protrude. But as you can see there, the way I'm holding it, it's hitting me in a pretty decent spot. Now, if it was hitting me like right here in the middle of my finger, yeah, I'd probably be a little bit annoyed with that. But for the most part, this one is pretty good with either blade. Some of them, not like that at all. Not quite. They're kind of annoying, and I don't like it. But anyway. Now, one of the other big things you want to check about on your traditional knives is a thing called blade wrap. And I've had people ask me before, you said blade wrap. What does that mean? Well, you saw me opening and closing these knives, right? So we're in the half stop and we're going shut. Well, if you open up the knife and you look, take a really good look at that blade, and every once in a while you can see where there may be a mark on the blade. What that means is this knife has blade wrap. It means it's either contacting the back spring, your edge, your cutting edge is contacting the back spring, a pin, or something like that. And it's actually, you know, causing a little bit of damage to the blade. Well, what can cause that? A pin, you know, design could cause it. But most of the time, a lot of times, if there's no stop pin up here, or your kick, which is this portion of your blade right here, the kick maybe isn't big enough or long enough to keep it from contacting that back spring. That's kind of the most cases that I've seen. Or, you know, there is the reverse where I have seen a knife where the kick has been a little bit too big and that blade doesn't fully shut, and you can actually see that blade protrudes a little bit, and if you get it wrong, you can actually cut yourself. Now, depending on how much of a knife modder, handyman, whatever type, you could take a Dremel tool and you could just Dremel that down. Take some emery cloth or something and just take that kick down a little bit. Take a little bit off until it closes enough to where that blade is not exposed. Now, again, should we be seeing stuff like that on high dollar knives? Absolutely not. What, you know, that is something that just, it shouldn't happen. Can it? Yes, it can. But, you know, it just really shouldn't. Let's see. Making sure I hit everything. Oh, I guess one of the other things you can look at is the relationship between the cover and either your liners. You know, is that, you know, sometimes you'll have some gapping. You know, we talked about gapping in the back spring. Sometimes you'll have some gapping up here. You know, that is definitely something. That, again, is something I'm not hugely critical about, even on some of your, you know, more expensive knives, where I want it to be basically perfection, for a lack of a better term, is here. You know, sometimes you'll see where in that corner there, you know, it's not a perfect 90 where the cover meets the liner. Okay, I'm not going to be, I don't get too mad about that, but out here, you know, especially in your higher dollar knives, it needs to be perfection or near perfection. I think, oh man, I've been going for a little, almost 20 minutes. You know, that's pretty much the biggest things that I can think of when it comes to what I look for on traditional knives. Man, I hope I'm not. I've really given this a lot of thought. I don't think I'm missing anything too dramatic, but you know, if you guys have some suggestions, maybe something you think I missed or something that you look at on traditional knives, please share it. And if I read it, I'll go, duh, yeah, I forgot that. So, you know, I think I got the big stuff. I hope I did. I'm pretty sure I did. But I appreciate it if you share. Of course, that's what we're here for. To share, to learn, and to grow in our hobby. That's what we're here for. So, thanks so much, guys. Greatly appreciate it. Rusty, thank you so much for suggesting this awesome topic. Apparently, I had a lot more fun with it than I thought I was going to. But thanks a lot, Rusty. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys for stopping by. As always, have a terrific rest of your day. Like, subscribe, leave me that comment. You know I love talking to you. Until next time, guys. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.